Welcome back to the What If It Works podcast. I'm your host, Ann Vogt. This is episode 81, and today we are pulling back the curtain. I have been talking about a new program that is coming your way. I wanted to bring on a guest today to truly share her experience, what she has seen while being in some of these leadership programs, and what it's like to just experience the program from the other side of the screen. So we are not going to talk about what you will gain in the Leader Collaboratory today, but what it feels like to apply what you learn in real life, join a community, and truly feel accountable to go take action. I am so honored to have Sara Gagnon back on the podcast. She, remember, is our relationship coach that helped us build trust all last August. And she is back to tell you what it's like to be inside some of these Leader Collaboratory events. Now, Sara just joined us on the Ignite Impact webinar series. And last May, she got to take a peek at some of the content that goes into my cohort and courses. And so today, she's going to pull back that curtain. She's going to share what it's really like to be a participant. She has seen the shift in her own leadership and really seen the shift internally. We've got our brand new Leader Collaboratory cohort, which is in launch mode right now, meaning if you are listening to this in real time, you've got 1 week to get into the cohort 2025. And I want you to hear directly from Sara what that's going to be like for you, what kind of growth you should be expecting, and what kind of community you are walking into. What I love about it is that Sara's story is super honest. She's going to talk about the action and the results and what's possible when you step into one of these programs and truly invest in yourself as a leader. If you've been thinking about taking your leadership up to the next level, or if you've been drowning in repeating yourself over and over and over with your team, or you find yourself, you're the only one bringing the energy to the meetings, that is literally why we created the Leader Collaboratory, a space for you to not only get some leadership training, but get active on the spot coaching so that you can really take your own skills to the next level. All right, let's hear it straight from Sara. Why now is the best time to jump in to the Leader Collaboratory, and or why next time you see a free webinar, you're going to want to jump in. Take a listen. Sara Gagnon, I am so excited to have you back on the podcast and to talk to you a little bit about some things you've experienced in the last couple of months, connecting with myself at Impact Influence and jumping into some of the free stuff that was offered recently. We just wrapped up the Ignite Impact Leadership webinar series. And I love the reason that I wanted you on the podcast is you made a comment very early on about so who goes to webinars? And I was like, oh boy, is this really the route we want to go? And so we did it. We did the webinar. We did the 4-part series. You were able to attend that. So let's start there. What did you expect going into a 4-part free webinar series?
Okay, so this is my first webinar I've ever attended in my life. So I was very skeptical. I thought that my expectation was that it was going to be a lot of selling. My expectation was going to be that there was going to be zero content that I could apply that day or ever. I also had a lot of my ego brain talking you don't need leadership help. You're a great leader.
Yes.
And so I had kind of a blocked mindset there. But what really helped change that mindset from super closed to slightly opening was your emails. They really set me up for success. they reminded me like when the webinars were going to happen. And I was like, okay. So the door opened a little bit, and then you gave me a workbook sheet that I could look at ahead of time. And I'm someone who likes to get prepared and be like, what's going to happen? So I liked the fact that she's going to start here, she's going to end here for the first webinar. And I just felt like you were setting me up for success. It was very thoughtful and kind. And then I was like, fine, I'll go. And so my expectations were very closed and ended up being open to experience whatever you were going to say for that day.
Yes, that idea of being open to receiving information. I feel this whenever I'm doing a speaking, presentation or a coaching session. You can kind of see people are showing up like, what is this even going to be?
Totally.
So I love that you were kind of feeling welcomed before the first webinar even started. And so also love that you commented on like a lot of webinars are kind of selling you. I've been to a lot of webinars where they're literally getting you so excited for something. And then at the end, it's like, okay, now buy this. And
Yeah.
you're like, where was the value in that? And so I have been burned so many times that if you are listening to this and you have an opportunity to join me on a webinar, it is going to be value because I don't want to waste anybody's time. And so let's
Not
talk
like
about that. So from, yeah, right. Session one, through the sessions that you attended, what did you feel like you got out of them? What did you experience? Like just let someone listening know like what is the vibe on these leadership webinar
Yeah.
events?
So the calls were lovely. I was afraid I was going to be this random person in this webinar room. And what happened was I was actually, I was very guarded the first webinar. And especially when you asked us all to engage in the chat, I was like, no, I don't want to. I was very professional, using professional language, and I did not want to participate. I wanted to close my camera off and just listen and just see what you had to say, see if it was worth my while. But it was so warm, it was so inviting, and everybody else came with like such a warm, inviting vibe as well that I was like, it just started to change, like from your emails, like in the first couple of moments of the webinar. And throughout the first webinar, I could feel that my comments were changing. I was more relaxed, I was more authentic, I was genuine, I was Sarah instead of like, professional self. But in still a professional atmosphere, getting professional advice that I could take into my day. That was huge. I loved that you went with the workbook flow. You didn't jump around. So I was like, oh, I can trust her that she's going to hit all of these topic and these theme points. That was really important to me. So you set your actions and your words that followed through. I was like, oh, that built trust for me.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that.
I love that you say that because I do want people engaging on the webinar, in the chat. Drop this, say this, share this. And then even some of the webinars, I was like, all right, who wants to unmute? And let's like coach out loud. Let's talk this through. And there was a hesitancy early on, right? Everybody is kind of like, whoa,
Mhm.
whoa, whoa, a webinar? We're just supposed to get information. And here comes Anne, just like, no, 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 let's learn about each other. Let's grow. Let's support one another. Let's, comment and, really engage and create an environment of trust. And so I love that you kind of recognized and then felt that because it is really my mission as a coach, right? I mean, you know this as a relationship coach. If we
Mhm.
don't have trust, we don't have authenticity, people don't open up and people don't grow. And so to be able to do that through a screen is tricky, but there is a way to do it where people really did kind of start to blossom. There was some really honest conversation. I don't remember if it was session one or session two. People were saying, like, here's where I'm stuck, and
Yeah.
here's what I'm experiencing with my team, and I don't like it. And I don't think you say stuff like that with a bunch of strangers unless you feel like people are seeing you for who you
Yeah.
are. There's no
Yes.
judgment. We're
Yes.
coming together to support one another. And yeah, I really felt that from the people who participated.
I was just thinking about the fact that it was four separate sessions was so, okay, at first it was a little daunting because again, I was coming in with that closed mindset, right? But
Yep.
after the first webinar, I was like, oh, this is so thoughtful. And I appreciated that because had I sat and received all that information that you gave us throughout those 4 sections or those 4 webinars. In one, I wouldn't have been able to figure out where to start.
Yeah.
But the fact that each webinar, each course, had a specific targeted focus, a workbook sheet that went with it,
Yep.
I just felt like, oh, I can do that. I felt like I accomplished something. And
Yeah.
that felt so good that it like built momentum to come to the next one
Yes.
and more clarity. And it was just very thoughtful of the person receiving the information. So that was really kind of you. I liked that. As
Oh,
an
that's
instructor, I appreciated that. Yeah.
yeah. And I love that there's time in between each of them, right? We didn't do a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 4 webinars, in 4 days. There was time in between because I think some of the questions I was having you guys answer, you had to really sit on it and really think about it or go apply it and then reflect on that instead of just, here's what you're going to do today, go have fun. It was like, all right, you thought of all these things in this session. What are you going to take away? What are you going to go put into action? And we're going to be back here again to talk about it again. And
And
that's,
that's the value too that you're
mm,
taught, like that I was hoping for and didn't know that webinars did. If you didn't have questions that required reflection and to go put it and apply it to our lives, that wouldn't have been content I would have sat down for. But
mm,
because it was juicy and like a little heavier, and even though it was a free webinar, I still got all of this value out of it. I wanted to come back again.
yeah. Oh, so good. I heard from a couple
Yeah.
other women too that there were some pretty in-depth conversations that we had on, I believe it was session 2 where we did some coaching. And during session 4, one of our participants was not there, and they were like, "Wait, what happened? Do you know what happened? Have you talked to this?" They were like so bought in to what everybody was working on that when there wasn't closure around that one individual, people were asking about it. So even though these were women from all different walks of life in all different positions, there really kind of became a camaraderie in that 1 hour that people
Very fast.
became, yes, people became invested in each other and supportive of each other. And yeah, it really felt like a welcoming space, even though it was not like they were joining this, that they knew they were joining this for that reason,
Yeah.
which I thought was really beautiful too. And so
Yes.
unexpected. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
A great surprise.
Yeah, so going through the workbooks and taking in the content, applying it, all of that, like what would you say would be something you felt either afterwards or kind of during? Just like tell us a little bit more about kind of the end result.
Yeah, I was humbled, like ate a lot of humbled pie about myself as a leadership, a leader in general.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh girl, you got some work to do." So that was a really nice surprise to receive that. The other thing that I walked away with was this little beautiful workbook of my growth journey. Every sheet was a moment that I learned something new, and now I have it as evidence that I did a thing. And I
Mhm.
love that I have actual tangible sheets I can look back and be like, this is where you started and this is where you ended. That is so valuable to someone like me.
Looking at where you were on that first workbook page to the last workbook
Yeah.
page, like what did you notice or
I
feel?
got clarity
Mm,
who I was as a leader on that first day versus really where are you as a leader by the last day and how much more room there is to grow. That's
yeah.
truly what I grasped and gathered. And, I'm looking for more in my life.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting because I think as a young person, I thought leadership is like a path that has an end point. And I don't want to be cheesy about that, but I really did think that, right? I was looking at my mentors and I'm like, oh, they got it together. They hit this certain 20 years of teaching and they're there. They're done. And now this would have been my 20th year if I was still teaching. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's still so much I've changed as a
Yeah.
person. And
Yeah.
so it's not even like, oh, there's a place to go. It's like every year, every few years, you have your own kind of growth spurt. and it's not in the same direction. And so, what I love about some of this content is you could do it over and over and over in the sense of to gain that clarity of, okay, where am I now? Okay, where am I going? Okay, who do I need to be? And a year from now, that those answers are all different. But it
Yeah, so
creates,
the worksheets can be reused. That's actually pretty cool. I never thought about that, but they really truly can be.
yeah,
And you can
yeah,
get a different result each
yeah.
time.
I mean, I was doing the
Yep.
worksheets with you guys. I
Yes.
created the
Which I
worksheets.
loved. Which I
Yes.
loved.
Yes, I was very like, ooh, where am I going? Who do I
Yeah.
think I'm being? But man, who do I really need to be? And so I think it really is content to help people grow. We did hear women, I say women because on the last call it was all women. And
Mhm.
they talked about just the growth of like recognition, of like
Oh,
recognizing
yeah.
where they were, which is kind of your humble pie comment too, of like, man, I really thought I was somewhere, but I needed to recognize how much ownership I needed to take over me, and that really is going to be what builds the momentum. It's not creating little leaders around you. And I mean that in the nicest way. It's about like owning your own leadership and stepping into that journey with confidence so that other people even want to be led by you. That 4-part series was the first time we had ever done that. The goal was really to take people on that journey. Like you said, we could have done a 2-hour webinar and fit
Mhm.
all of that content in a really tight space, which is what I do in a lot of my speaking gigs. And it's
Right.
good, but man, you get done with all of that and you can only handpick what you're going to move forward with. And the goal was that each session you got to handpick what you were going to move forward with, and then you got to play with it, and then you got to come back and be reminded of it, and all of that, which is exactly what I want to build more of. And so, if you as a listener are not aware, we just launched the Leader Collaboratory Cohort, which is very similar. There is a course, it is called Ignite with Impact, which goes through all 6 steps of the impact method. And so, you as a participant are going to learn a little bit and then have an opportunity for coaching, application, and reflection. And so I love, Sara, that you talk about you got that out of 4 webinars, like just 4 45-minute sessions in a matter of 4 weeks. And the cohort is 8 weeks. It goes way deeper. There's little pieces that are taken from that Ignite Impact webinar series, but it is way more content. Now, you had the wonderful experience of getting to see a little bit of that content in advance. And so I do want to talk a little bit about that. So, Sara was able to watch and participate with the Lead with Impact 1.0 course. That is kind of the backbone of the Leader Collaboratory course that's coming out, Ignite with Impact. And so, Sara, anything you want to share about just that
Sure.
learning experience?
So it's funny because when I'm thinking back to when I did the 1.0 course, it was emailed courses to me so I could do it on my own time. And I was jazzed. I leaned in right away versus a webinar where I was really guarded.
Yeah.
Um, so it's so interesting and then it kind of flip-flopped. So I leaned in pretty quickly to the 1.0 courses because I had my workbook ready to go. I had time. I was focused and I started working. And then I don't think I could have put words to it until I experienced the webinar. But what I was missing was the community, was the
Mm.
ability to talk to other participants. Like, what are they saying to this reflection question? What does their challenge look like for in their work environment versus mine? And I also needed like to check in with you. Like
Oh,
I wanted to
I
have
thought
like
you were
a
going to say I just
oh,
needed a
leader.
push. I
No,
was not
I
expecting
needed
that statement.
I needed Anne. I had to kind of lead myself through leading this course about leading, but I really, really wanted to have someone to talk to about it.
Mm,
That was huge in the
yeah.
webinar. That whole experience was just amplified and highlighted because I had everything that 1.2 course had, but I also had community and I had someone guiding the course, and that
Yeah.
is huge.
I like that because I do think we talk about leadership, and when you're doing stuff by yourself, whether that be reading professional development books or watching webinars, or sometimes it can feel really lonely. and just like, am I doing this right? Am I even making a difference? And then you've got somebody asking you about it and they're saying, like, drop in the chat what your win was. I remember
Yeah.
this one, all of you on the webinar that day were
Yep.
like, is,
Yeah.
is this a good answer? Right? Almost like
Is this a win?
I don't
Yeah.
I don't know if I had a win. And then by
Yep.
the end it was like wins were flooding out because
Yeah.
people were okay with putting them in there. So to be in a group that's truly supporting your wins, they're excited to hear about your wins. They're excited to share their wins. Like that community is really important. And honestly, it's really hard to motivate ourselves all the time.
And to stay accountable. Like
Yes.
I appreciated, you checking in. So I remember like at the end of the first webinar, you gave us a challenge, and I was like, okay. And I wrote a post-it. So I was like, I'm gonna do it because you asked us to do one little thing or something like that. It was very
Yep.
digestible information, and I was like, all right, it's bite size. I can do this. And then by the next webinar, you had asked us about it, and I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I wrote a post-it because I would have forgotten. So going back to the first worksheet and having that post-it just felt really good because I was ready to comment in the chat because I
Yeah.
knew that I wanted to be part of the conversation.
Yeah. Versus like you watching a course by yourself and
Yes,
completing the
lonely.
workbook. And you did
Yes,
complete the workbook. I mean, you and I chatted about it kind of while you were going. But when you can like build on that information and have that immediate coaching, I think
excitement.
that's just, yeah. And just, sometimes writing something down is good. But then
Yep.
having somebody talk about it, you can kind of look at what you wrote and like go deeper on it.
Yes.
I see that in presentations. People quickly write stuff down. And then I say, now give me an example. And they're like, what? No, 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 just move on. And I'm like, no, no, no. Let's go deeper. Give me an example. What are you going to see? What are you going to feel? What are you going to experience? And they're like, whoa, that's a lot. And you're like,
Hmm.
yeah, well, if you don't think about it, your brain is already like this information's already gone.
Yes.
So really allowing you to go deeper in the information with what you learned in the course, but then that coaching piece, which is why I'm so excited. People have asked me, why don't you just sell your course by itself? And I am going to. Because there are people listening right now that are like, Anne, I don't need you. I don't need the accountability. I am someone who can take a course from start to finish. And that's
Yeah,
great. Great. There's going to be an option for you. In a
absolutely.
moment, I'll tell you what website to go to. But that course is just like reading a book and you read the whole thing and it inspired you in the moment. But without that active action and that reflection and that coming back and having that accountability, it's so hard to do that alone.
It
And
is.
and we know most leaders are alone either in their title, in their department, in their area,
Yeah.
and I think they're looking for ways to really connect and grow with other people. And if you're not, the course is there for you by itself. But the cohort is really to do exactly what you just got done saying, like
Yeah.
spark energy, have accountability to watch that video before we get on coaching calls. Ask the questions you need to ask in real time. And there's going to be opportunities for people to be talking live with their cameras on and audio on. And then there's going to be times for them to be talking and chatting in the chat at the exact same time so that we can really be processing a lot of information in a short amount of time, which I
So
think is exciting. Knowing that the cohort launches soon at the end of September. So if you are listening to this in real time, you need to go to anvote.com/the-leader-collaboratory. That's where you're going to get all your information about the collaboratory and get the link to go and become a participant in the 2025 cohort. But I want to ask you, Sara, since you know a lot of the behind the scenes information, you've obviously seen the webinar as well. What are you excited about for leaders?
I am excited about, I think, three things, and we've kind of touched on them today. So the one-on-one community coaching is just top of my list.
Hmm.
Because I've done the course and now the webinar, I know that that is something I'm going to look for in any online course. It must have someone I can bounce ideas off of, check in with a community, and just feel like my authentic self. The other part that I absolutely am excited for is to extend that workbook
Hmm.
to our participants because without that, I felt I wouldn't be as tethered to what you were asking us to reflect upon. I needed a page personally for my brain, my body. I needed to answer questions and listen at the same time. That held me accountable, and I was like ready to answer when you asked in our calls. So, what did you put down for this? And that felt so good. I loved being held accountable. And the workbook, again, was such a beautiful thing to hold your growth journey from where you started to the end. It's something to celebrate. I just think it's so beautiful. And then lastly, just the content that you provide is digestible, it's bite-sized, it can be applied that day.
Yeah.
Everything you teach can be broken down to a small task that you can carry out in your workday the moment that you take the first course. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm excited for.
If you have been listening for quite a while, the Lead with Impact 1.0 workbook, I think, had 12 pages. It is upwards of 50 pages, and not in an overwhelming way, in a way of
Beautiful.
helping, yes, helping with that brainstorm, helping with those ideas, but helping you make it concrete and not just an idea. But then there's a whole page of like, now, where are you going to use this? When are you going to use this? How are you going to use this? Now go use it and let's reflect on it. And I
Mhm.
think I love that word tethered, because I think sometimes leadership courses can be fluffy and you don't really become convicted in what you're doing. You're
Yeah.
like, okay, cool. That's a new mindset that I don't have, that maybe I could have, where this like literally grounds you in a lot of the basics, but then takes you up the stairs, if you will, each day, a new thing, a new idea, so that you can truly be growing. I always say exponentially, because
Mhm.
everything builds on itself. And I think that's how you go up the ladder, instead of just, I listened to some information and I might do one or two things next week. It's like, you better be doing it this week because we got a call this Wednesday.
Right.
And then we got a call next week. And so it really does kind of create some urgency, but also, like you've already
In the
talked
best
about,
possible way. Yeah.
yeah, and so much like accountability, because we truly want you to learn and grow. Like, I was so excited with the people who participated every single webinar, because they came back because they knew, man, what I got out of session one, if I can expand on that, like, let's go. And I think that's what this cohort is going to do. It's 8 weeks long. You get 8 modules that you will be watching on training on your own time. So if you are someone who wants to, digest it all really quickly, you have that opportunity. But we're going to be coaching you through it 1 week at a time, one module at a time, so that you truly can get your foot in it, feel grounded in it, and then we're going to take that next step. And then we're adding in something new that I've never done before when I've done a cohort like this, and that's those accountability check-ins. So we're going to ask you, what's your focus for the week? What is something you're going to accomplish this week? And then we're going to check in with you on Friday, being like, how'd it go? Did it happen? And I'm excited to share with all of you listening, if you're thinking about the cohort, there's going to be days where you're going to be like, did not happen. My life got lit on fire. And we're going to be like, woo, go enjoy your weekend. We'll see you next week, where we're going to extinguish that fire. We're going to keep going. And then there are going to be days where people try stuff and they're like, and it bombed majorly. We're going to say, that's okay. You tried it. Now we're going to reflect on it. Now we're going to shift those actions. We're going to try again. I remember one of my favorite follow-ups was with a woman who started appreciating her team. She
Mhm.
had a male-dominated industry, and she started going all in on compliments, which is something we talk about, like how to give compliments that really encourage positive behavior. And she's like, Anne, they are so uncomfortable. She said, it is so uncomfortable. I'm making eye contact, I'm delivering a compliment, and they are like shutting down and walking away. And, and I was like, it's okay. They are not used to this version of you, but this is what is going to drive momentum. Just
Ah,
watch how it comes back. But at first, it is uncomfortable. But how cool that you have a group to say, that was uncomfortable, and the group just rallies around you. And
Yeah,
that's what we're
because
going to build.
discomfort is with change, right? They go
Yes.
together. So that would be a celebrating of her win. You got
Yeah.
uncomfortable? Let's go. That's
Let's
exactly
go.
what you should be
Let's keep them
feeling.
uncomfortable. That's called
Yeah,
growth.
discomfort is not great, but when you have a community to share that with, it feels a little bit more manageable within yourself.
For sure. Oh, so good. So grateful for Sara Gagnon joining us today, and honestly love that what she described is what I hope people feel when they leave an event, whether that's a speaking event or a podcast like you're listening to right now, or a webinar or the new cohort that's coming out, that they feel like they can go take action right away, that they feel that they got clarity on themselves, on the actions to take, and on their vision and their mission going forward. There have been so many times that I've been stuck in my life. Just recently, we even talked about it. And it's that having that accountability, somebody saying, you got this, take the next step, try again, say it a different way. You can do this, that I truly believe that's why there's so much transformation that happens in the leadership work that I do. And I really want to invite you to take a look. Go to anvote.com, click on the Leader Collaboratory, click to get into the cohort. That's where you're going to find all the details, including the price, the dates, how the calls work. We've got weekly calls, weekly training, a couple times a week check-ins, the availability for you to reach out at any point with any question via email and through the hub. We've got a brand new space that this is going to be living in. It's not going to be YouTube videos that you got to go find a link to go get. You are going to have access to the Leader Collaboratory Hub, where all of your coursework is going to be in there. Your workbook is going to be in there. All of the meetings are going to be there. So your links are easy to find. It is going to make your experience so seamless so that you can focus on the material, on your actions, on your beliefs, and you can truly see exponential growth by the end. I am so excited. You've got 1 week from today to go get in this opportunity. We will be doing another cohort. It will be in 2026. It will have a different price structure. We will be utilizing the comments that we get out of the 2025 cohort to drive us into 2026. And you got to get in there to see what it's like to feel the growth and the energy and the positivity and that mindset of, I can make a difference. And I'm not meant to just be here to lead a few people. I am here to create impact and to create influence. Thank you for listening today. Cannot wait to see what you do. Get out there and create change.